Long live the world proletarian revolution. Chairman Gonzalo teaches us that in the process of the world revolution to sweep away imperialism and reaction from the face of the earth, there are three moments. First, the strategic defensive. Second, the strategic equilibrium. And third, the strategic offensive of the world revolution. The first moment starts with the Paris Commune. In 1871, the proletariat with rifles installed the Commune, which abolished the police and the army and replaced them with the armed people. It is the first time the proletariat established this dictatorship. Engels says, "Of late, the social democratic Philistine has once more been filled with the wholesome terror at the words, dictatorship of the proletariat." Well and good, gentlemen. Do you want to know what this dictatorship looks like? Look at the Paris Commune. That was the dictatorship of the proletariat. The Commune only lasted 3 months, but it was the first assault on the heavens. Lenin synthesizes, but 2 mistakes destroyed the fruits of the splendid victory. The proletariat stopped halfway. Instead of setting about expropriating the expropriators, it allowed itself to be led astray by dreams of establishing a higher justice in the country, united by a common national task. Such institutions as the banks, for example, were not taken over, and Proudhonist theories about a just exchange, etc., still prevailed among the socialists. The second mistake was excessive magnanimity on the part of the proletariat. Instead of destroying its enemies, it sought to exert moral influence on them. It underestimated the significance of direct military operations in civil war, and instead of launching a resolute offensive against Versailles that would have crowned its victory in Paris, it tarried and gave the Versailles government time to gather the dark forces and prepare for the blood-soaked week of May. But despite all its mistakes, the Commune was a superb example of the great proletarian movement of the 19th century. Marx set a high value on the historic significance of the Commune. If, during the treacherous attempt by the Versailles gang to seize the arms of the Paris proletariat, the workers had allowed themselves to be disarmed without a fight, the disastrous effect of the demoralization that this weakness would have caused in the proletarian movement would have been far, far greater than the losses suffered by the working class in the battle to defend its arms. The sacrifices of the Commune, heavy as they were, are made up for by its significance for the general struggle of the proletariat. It stirred the socialist movement throughout Europe. It demonstrated the strength of civil war. It dispelled patriotic illusions and destroyed the naive belief in any efforts of the bourgeoisie for common national aims. The Commune taught the European proletariat to pose concretely the task of the socialist revolution. The lesson learnt by the proletariat will not be forgotten. The struggle of the proletariat continued. In 1905, an attempt was made to overthrow the old Tsarist rule, and during a brief period of revolution, the proletariat learned more than in 30 years of peaceful times. It was the final rehearsal of the revolution. The first imperialist war of 1914 and 1918 was the inevitable outcome of this partition of the whole world, of this domination by the capitalist monopolies, of this great power wielded by an insignificant number of very big banks, 2, 3, 4, or 5 in each country. This war was waged for the repartitioning of the whole world. It was waged in order to decide which of the small groups of the biggest states, the British or the German, was to obtain the opportunity and the right to rob, strangle, and exploit the whole world. You know that the war settled this question in favor of the British group. And, as a result of this war, all capitalist contradictions have become immeasurably more acute. Lenin. The victory of the October Revolution in 1917 marked an extraordinary milestone in world history, the end of the bourgeois revolution and the beginning of the world proletarian revolution. This new period was signaled by the intensifying violence expressing the decrepitude of the bourgeoisie in leading that revolution and the maturity of the proletariat to take, lead, and maintain the power of the dictatorship of the proletariat. The revolutions of the oppressed nations also occur within this framework. Under the great leadership of Lenin, the Bolsheviks leading the proletariat and the people overthrew Russian imperialism with the October Revolution, and during the long years of revolutionary civil war, they defeated the white forces and the united attack of the English, French, Japanese, and Yankee imperialists, and created the Great Soviet Union, initiating the construction of socialism. The repercussions of the October Revolution shook the whole world, and on all continents communist parties were formed, affiliated to the Communist International founded by Lenin. In many countries, the communists raised up in armed struggle.
Во всем мире растет союз коммунистов. В ряде стран победила уже советская власть. Еще недолго, и мы увидим победу коммунизма во всем мире. Мы увидим основание Всемирной Федеративной Республики Советов.
Stalin continued the work of Lenin, and in the process of socialism in the USSR, he fought against the deviations of Trotsky, Zinoviev, and Kamenev, which ended in 1937. The struggle went on for 13 years, and it is false that it was solved with administrative means. We take the position of Chairman Mao about the role of Comrade Stalin, that it is 70% positive. The old Tsarist Russia, burdened with centuries of backwardness, with a stifling feudal system that gripped the system from the deepest roots to the most volatile, with a brutal, autocratic dictatorship known as the Gendarme of Europe, was toppled by the revolution. Centuries of oppression were swept away, and in a few decades, it reached great heights in production, and provided the basis of what the revisionists later used and profited to their advantage as the economy of a power and superpower.
Long may our crimson flag inspire, shining in glory for all men to see, through days dark and stark.
There were five five-year plans for a period of 25 years, with a world war in which the Soviet Union had 25 million dead and had to apply a scorched earth policy. The force and conditions created in those times allowed a forceful advance and development until the 1960s, and the drove of revisionists could not contain such a powerful force. The momentum and vigor of the forms generated by the new system continued to express themselves. Chairman Mao said that Stalin did not know how to manage the system of production very well. He bypassed it and did not allow it to walk on its 2 feet, agriculture and industry. Nevertheless, despite the errors committed, the momentum of the power of these new social relations created a complete revolution and determined a basis of economic development that met the needs of millions of people.
We fought for the future, destroyed the invader, and brought to our...
They attacked the planning system, when in reality it was the basis that allows the handling of the economic process serving the interests of the class, exercising its class dictatorship, moving the masses with people capable of managing the society and imposing conditions on the world, planning its laws. That's an expression of freedom, not a puppet show. Economic planning permits the strengthening and unfolding of the social character of production, managing to serve the interests of the majority, and this is something that the imperialists and their lackeys do not like at all.
And free, strong in a friendship tried by fire, long may our crimson flag inspire, shining in...
It was through the Russians that the Chinese found Marxism. Before the October Revolution, the Chinese were not only ignorant of Lenin and Stalin, they did not even know of Marx and Engels. The salvos of the October Revolution brought us Marxism-Leninism. The October Revolution helped progressives in China, as throughout the world, to adopt the proletarian world outlook as the instrument for studying a nation's destiny, and considering anew their own problems. Follow the path of the Russians. That was their conclusion. Chairman Mao. In 1927, with the Autumn Harvest Uprising in China, Chairman Mao led the initiation of the People's War following the road from the countryside to the city. In 1936, Japanese imperialism invaded China en masse, and the Revolutionary Civil War transformed into a war of national liberation. In Spain, during the years of 1936 to 1939, the communist and progressive forces fought the fascists. Thousands of revolutionaries from all over the world took part in the defense of the Republic, and their blood was fused on the battlefield with that of the proletariat and the people of Spain, in a magnificent expression of proletarian internationalism. Around the time of the victory of the Chinese Revolution, 1949, world revolution entered its second moment, the strategic equilibrium. The revolution is the main tendency and continues to be so. What Chairman Mao affirmed continues to develop. After the Second World War, there was no stability, not even relatively. All the world was stirred up by the great revolutionary storms. In waves, okay, it is so, because it couldn't be any other way. In the 50s, there was the socialist camp. The triumph of the Chinese Revolution signified a change in the correlation of the forces of the world. As an expression of the principal contradiction in the world, the national liberation movements had a great development. In Asia, Africa, and Latin America, the people stood up in arms against imperialism.
Om jag någonsin ska strida, blir det för vår fana röd. Och gevär till jag frida, mot tyrannen till hans död. Till armén av proletärer, män och kvinnor i ett led.
27 i Shanghai sköt man ner de personer som förhindrade en skälig profit. Med ett par miljoner amerikanska patroner och med order direkt från Wall Street. Och man mördade och hängde och förföljde och bevaka och det varade i månader och år. Men historien den kan man inte vrida tillbaka och tyrannerna får skörda vad de sår. När en tid var förfluten la i sista minuten kompradorklassens båtar ut från kaj. Ty ur sådden av döda kom arméer av röda och nu trängde de in i Shanghai. Det finns de som aldrig kan lära av historien och det väntar nya skördar längre fram. Ty nu sår reaktionen ut sin draksång på nytt igen på Java, i Grekland och Vietnam. De kan mörda och hänga och förfölja och bevaka och det varar säkert månader och år. Men historien den kan man inte vrida tillbaka och tyrannerna får skörda vad de står.
After the death of Comrade Stalin, the revisionists usurped power using the army, assassinating and suppressing the communists, restoring capitalism in the Soviet Union. On a world level, a battle was fought between Marxism and revisionism. The communists led by Chairman Mao and the revisionists led by the sinister Khrushchevites of social imperialist Russia. In 1966, Chairman Mao initiated the Cultural Revolution to prevent capitalist restoration, strengthen the dictatorship of the proletariat, and develop socialism, with the objective of changing the soul. The Cultural Revolution had repercussions all over the world. The Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution, in a historical perspective, is the most transcendental development of Marxism-Leninism made by Chairman Mao. It is a solution to the great pending problem of the continuation of the revolution under the proletarian dictatorship. It represents a more profound and wider new stage in the development of the socialist revolution in our country. What was the situation that presented itself? As stated in the decision of the Communist Party of China on the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution, although overthrown, the bourgeoisie still tries to avail itself of the old ideas, culture, habits, and ways of the exploiting classes in order to corrupt the masses and to conquer the minds of the people in its endeavors to restore its power. The proletariat must do exactly the opposite. It must deal merciless frontal blows to all the challenges by the bourgeoisie in the ideological arena and change the spiritual composition of the whole society using its own new ideas, culture, habits, and ways. Our present aim is to crush through struggle those who occupy leading posts and follow the capitalist road, to criticize and repudiate the reactionary bourgeois authorities in the academic field, to criticize and repudiate the ideology of the bourgeoisie and other exploiting classes, and to transform education, literature, and art and the rest of areas of the superstructure that do not correspond to the economic base of socialism in order to facilitate the consolidation and development of the socialist system.
Bönder och soldater är de förtryckta folkens bundsförvanter och kamrater. En förebild som Kina är för kampen vi skall föra. Vi imperialisterna till varje pris förgöra. Gränser står de nu med bomber och kanoner. Men öster lyser röd och 700 miljoner. Kinesiska kamrater står beredda att försvara sitt land och oberoende mot reaktionens snara. Folk står enad under ledning av partiet. Ett föredöme, en symbol för socialism och frihet. Och går vi samma väg som Kinas revolutionärer och övervinner liga då blir världen proletärer.
It was in these conditions that the most earth-shaking political process and the greatest mass mobilization the world has ever seen broke out, and whose objectives were thus outlined by Chairman Mao. The present great proletarian cultural revolution is completely necessary and very timely to consolidate the proletarian dictatorship, to prevent the restoration of capitalism, and to build socialism. We also emphasize two questions. One, the GPCR implies a landmark in the development of the proletarian dictatorship towards the proletariat securing political power, concretely expressed in the revolutionary committees. And two, the restoration of capitalism in China after the 1976 counter-revolutionary coup is not a negation of the GPCR, but is plainly part of the contention between restoration and counter-restoration. And on the contrary, it shows us the transcendental historical importance of the GPCR and the inexorable march of mankind towards communism. Cultural Revolution had an immense repercussion all over the world, and many imperialist countries' armed movements arose. The anti-imperialist movement strengthened as a whole, and principally, it gave a great impulse to the reconstitutions of the communist parties destroyed by contemporary revisionism.
Di nuovo la caccia alle streghe, i padroni, il governo, la stampa, la televisione. In ogni scontento si vede uno sporco cinese. Uniamoci tutti a difendere le istituzioni. Ma oggi ho visto nel corteo tante facce sorridenti, le compagne, 15 anni, gli operai con gli studenti, il potere agli operai, non la scuola del padrone, sempre uniti vinceremo. Viva la rivoluzione, quando poi le camionette hanno fatto i caroselli, i compagni hanno impugnato i bastoni dei cartelli ed ho visto le auto blindo rovesciate e poi bruciate, tanti e tanti baschi neri con le teste fracassate. La violenza, la violenza, la violenza, la rivolta, chi ha esitato questa volta lotterà con noi domani. Oggi ho visto nel corteo tante facce sorridenti, le compagne 15 anni, gli operai con gli studenti, il potere agli operai, con la scuola del padrone, sempre uniti vinceremo. Viva la rivoluzione, quando poi le camionette hanno fatto i caroselli, i compagni hanno impugnato i bastoni dei cartelli ed ho visto le auto blindo rovesciate e poi bruciate, tanti e tanti baschi neri con le teste fracassate. La violenza, la violenza, la violenza, la rivolta, chi ha esitato questa volta lotterà con noi domani.
After the restoration of capitalism in China, with the coup of Deng in 1976, imperialism, reaction, and revisionism couldn't stop vomiting about the defeat of communism. And in our days they center in their general counter-revolutionary offensive, which is headed by Yankee imperialism, on negating socialism, attacking the dictatorship of the proletariat, negating the need for the party, and proclaim the expiration of Marxism. As Chairman Gonzalo teaches us, Mao said, in a few years the world has been transformed like never before. What it took England 250 years to develop as is, it will take China 50 years to do. Here we see the potential of the relations of production.
Ложью и клеветой заполнены столбцы реакционных американских газет. Каков же этот хваленный образ жизни? Посмотрите на их искусство. Посмотрите на их спорт. Посмотрите на эту борьбу в вольноамериканском стиле. Посмотрите, как ухаживают за собачкой миллионера и как безработные стоят в очереди за бурдой.
What system has done anything similar? The United States? This country, for example, had its umbilical cord tied to England, which was already bourgeois. Upon reaching the USA, the British did not find a feudal base. How many centuries did they need? More than 3 centuries? 350 years? Which cannot be separated from England? In 30 years, were they able to make a nation like the USSR? Were they able to overcome hunger like in China? What can they boast about? Nothing. It was heaven that was lost, and we must reconquer it. We must storm the skies again. It is not so complicated. Socialism is young, has had a short time, and today it exists as experience. It is in the communists and revolutionaries of the world, exists as ideology, as politics, as theory and praxis, and it also lives in us, the communists and revolutionaries of Peru. third moment starts around 1980 when the world proletarian revolution enters its strategic offensive, with signs like the Iran-Iraq War, Afghanistan, Nicaragua, and the initiation of the People's War in Peru, May 17, 1980, which develops as vanguard of the People's Wars that have opened the path for others to follow. This epoch is inscribed in the about 50 to 100 years in which the contradiction between capitalism and socialism will develop, whose solution will bring us to communism. Today we see that the masses no longer want to continue living in subhuman conditions, side by side with the enormous riches created. Imperialism ripens the objective conditions for revolution. The imperialists cannot continue governing like before. The old order is creaking. It is collapsing desperately. Chairman Gonzalo tells us, in the face of a counter-revolutionary offensive, men have to act, and we communists are even more obliged to do so. We have to transform this offensive into a revolutionary counter-offensive. The transforming activity of man is necessary in order for the character of revolution of being the main trend to express itself. And we communists have to concretize the People's War, specifying it to the concrete conditions of each revolution. The new great wave of the world proletarian revolution advances. In all parts of the world, the irrefutable truth is confirmed that the countries want independence, the nations want liberation, and the peoples want revolution. The imperialist regression sharpens the principal contradiction in the world between the oppressed nations and imperialism. All the world is rising up for the war, and the war of the imperialists crosses the whole orb only to generate more resistance.
Yanquis que traen más hambre, miseria y opresión a nuestro pueblo. Mira, ahí está la letra, cosa. Ahí está la letra. Y raída bandera del imperialismo. Y todo lo reaccionario son tigres de papel. El imperialismo y todo lo reaccionario son tigres de papel. Abajo la mayor intervención del imperialismo yanqui. Abajo. Yanquis, go home. Yanquis, go home.
The revolution, not the imperialist war, is the main tendency in the world, historically as well as politically. We are in the 50 to 100 years in which imperialism, revisionism, and world reaction will be swept away from the face of the earth. We are in the strategic offensive of the world proletarian revolution, and there is a revolutionary situation and unequal development in the world. These are not mere formulas or mantras. They are indispensable political facts to understand and assume completely and fully, without which it is impossible for the communists to orient themselves and draw up a just and correct ideological and political line. We see how, if one does not understand this, neither does one understand the new great wave of the world proletarian revolution and comes to assume positions of peace negotiations, etc. Because one does not have a correct position on the international situation, one does not understand the international class struggle, and thus does not have the confidence in one's own revolution. The people's wars of Nepal and Turkey, the armed struggles of India and other parts of the world, are part of the new great wave of the world proletarian revolution. What is due is to develop them more, and this is possible only with more people's war. Any other way in the world panorama only leads to restricting the revolution, and does not allow duly serving the development of the new great wave.
À 600 mètres de fond, c'est pas sur vos tapis qu'on meurt de silicose. Vous comptez vos profits, on compte nos mutilés. Regardez-nous vieillir au rythme des cadences. Patron, regardez-nous, c'est la guerre qui commence. Nous sommes les nouveaux partisans, francs-tireurs de la guerre de classe. Le camp du peuple est notre camp. Nous sommes les nouveaux partisans. Et vous, les gardes-chiourmes de la classe ouvrière, vous sucrez sur notre dos.
A revolutionary situation and unequal development is existing in the world, which is sharpened more every day, and expresses a greater sharpening of all the fundamental contradictions in the world, particularly of the principal one. The objective conditions are magnificent for the greater development and advance of the world proletarian revolution. The problem for our hill on the international level is in the subjective conditions, in the lack of Marxist-Leninist, Maoist, Communist parties. The problem is in us. There is no country in the world where the proletariat does not clamor for their vanguard. Every position contrary to this is Deng Xiaopingism. There is no country where one can put forward later waiting for a greater sharpening of the class struggle. This is an undeniable truth. It is more, it is a law. The conditions are there, the class clamors, that the communists assume their role, lead us to fight.
Quand on fait les 3-8, la révolte qui gronde au foyer noir d'Ivry annonce la vengeance des morts d'Aubervilliers. C'est la révolte aussi au cœur des bidonvilles où la misère s'entasse.
Those in the international communist movement that are sowing capitulation, portraying imperialism as all-powerful while attacking Chairman Gonzalo serving the plan of Yankee imperialism, are displacing the principal task of the communists in the world, to strive for Maoism to be command and guide of the world proletarian revolution and embody itself in the peoples, generating militarized Marxist-Leninist, Maoist, Communist parties to lead the new great wave of the world proletarian revolution which we are entering today. These people, the infamous distillers, are not for the unity of the revolutionary internationalist movement. Just like Trotsky hid his splitting behind shouts of unity. Because of this, they try every way to confront one against the other, using the old tactic of letting the two tigers fight, inflating some to try to isolate others to be able to maneuver, moving unconditional collaborators. But the revisionists continue with the law of all the reactionaries, and because of this, although they make trouble now, their final failure and defeat is inevitable. What is due to the left is to adhere more and more to the red line of Chairman Gonzalo and develop an implacable two-line struggle to crush revisionism. Thus, the international situation presents to us the overwhelming fact. The world people's war is on the agenda, today more than ever. The main contribution of Chairman Gonzalo and the Communist Party Peru is having defined Maoism as third, new, and higher stage of Marxism, assuming to serve and contribute to that our ideology constitutes the command and guide of world revolution. The question deriving from this is to show the validity, the transcendental perspectives of Maoism, also in showing that we rely mainly on our own forces, without following the ceremonial staff of superpowers, nor of whatever imperialist power. It is possible to make revolution, and evermore it is necessary to do it like this, and to show the potential of the people's war, despite all our limitations. It is like some say a hope, which means responsibility, and to be a leading torch of world revolution, an example that can serve other communists. Because of this, we defend the life of Chairman Gonzalo, the greatest living Marxist-Leninist Maoist on the face of the earth. It is a task of great strategic content, inseparable from struggling for imposing Maoism as sole command and guide of world revolution. On the 5th of November 2004, the old Peruvian state has initiated what they call a new trial. It is a farce with the purpose of carrying out the assassination of Chairman Gonzalo. After this spectacle, the Yankee with Indian hat, Toledo, himself, said that they were to carry out a summary trial using these exact words. The slogan of the PCP is, "Down with the summary trial."
Del partido y la revolución, el pensamiento Gonzalo es nuestra patria, aplicación creadora del maoísmo, el presidente Gonzalo lo ha plasmado, luce en el mundo de rojo amanecer.
We demand the public presentation of Chairman Gonzalo, live and direct, in front of the national and international press, and that he can make a statement. Defend the life of Chairman Gonzalo. The communists have until now 3 swords. Our founder Marx, the great Lenin, and Chairman Mao Zedong, having our great task of upholding, defending, and applying Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, mainly Maoism, putting it as command and guide of the world proletarian revolution. Continuing the development of Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, Chairman Gonzalo upholds, defends, and applies our undefeated and everlasting ideology, constituting Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, Gonzalo thought, the unity base of the party, developing the Peruvian Revolution, and contributing to world revolution. Gonzalo thought is what the party members of the PCP mainly have to incarnate because it is a guarantee of triumph that leads to the democratic revolution, to the socialist revolution, to the cultural revolutions until communism. We consider it a long and not a short process, with the conviction that to enter communism we pass through a series of twists and turns that necessarily will occur. More, it is not strange that we apply the 3 moments on the world proletarian revolution. Chairman Mao applied them to the process of the prolonged People's War, and as communists, we can not only look at the present, but the long years yet to travel. The oppressed nations have the strength of numbers. What lacks is communist parties who develop People's War. People's War strategically coordinated by the communist parties. Only through these will a real international communist movement be forged. The RIM is only a step in the formation of the international communist movement. The World People's War will generate it. The international communist movement will not be generated as a consequence of conferences, of forums. It's not a mix of organizations, but it will be formed by those who apply People's War. The communists of the world have a great responsibility, and every party has to strive to fulfill their tasks. Every communist to assume his condition and struggle in serving the world proletarian revolution, in working with the communists of the world, in establishing communism. For this is our final goal, the ever-shining communism. The key point is Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, for the problem is to have a just and correct ideological political line. And you can't have a just and correct political line if there is no just and correct ideology. Because of this, we think that the key to everything is ideology. Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, mainly Maoism. The second task, develop communist parties. Why? Because the masses thirst for revolution. The masses are ready and clamor for revolution. So the problem isn't in them. The proletariat clamors for revolution. The oppressed nations, the peoples of the world clamor for revolution. So we need to develop the communist parties. The rest the masses will do. They make history and will sweep away imperialism and world reaction with People's War. Long live Chairman Gonzalo and his all-powerful thought. Long live Marxism, Leninism, Maoism, mainly Maoism. Long live the Communist Party of Peru. Long live the invincible People's War. Long live the new great wave of the world revolution.